Well, Peter Ostapko, welcome to the L3 Leadership Podcast. We were just talking, and I feel like you're my brother. We're both extremely passionate about community and bringing together people and really creating authentic friendships. And so that's why I'd love to just start diving in, but give people a little context for what you do when it comes to community and connecting people.
Well, thank you for having me on here. I'm honored to be here. Honestly, I was in the business world for about 15 years. I graduated from college in 2008 and graduated with a finance degree. And so, in the midst of a financial collapse. And so I remember our professor saying, hey, you're going to have to look for some new things. And went into insurance and business and ultimately was in banking. And spent a lot of time in the community, just, building relationships and just being connected is something that comes very natural to me. But something that I was observing was just a great deal of fragmentation that I saw in our community in Springfield, where we live, Springfield, Missouri. The greater Springfield area is probably about 350,000. So a good size, but certainly not like a thriving city or metropolitan or something. But enough where everybody has something to do and there's a lot of, everybody's kind of busy with their thing. And so I said, well, what are we doing that is kind of bringing people together? Everybody's kind of got their silo of whether it's a faith silo or, a business silo or even the mastermind or, the country club or whatever it may be. Everybody's kind of got their thing, their tribe. And those are good things. We need those things. But what's the connectivity of those look like within a community? And we started out with Kinsman as a publication, as a really high-end book, a journal designed to really provoke thought and dialogue with men. And then for a couple of years, we just kind of sat on the idea of community and what does that really look like? We didn't want to jump into it. We wanted it to be authentic and the right thing. And so we launched our first Kinsman table gathering in June of 2023. And really what I did is I built out a spreadsheet of 10 different industries, and I picked about 15 men from each one, and I just sent some invites out. And I had space for 100 men. It was invite only. I sent out, I think, 105 invites. I was like, I don't know if I'm going to get 5 RSVPs or 100. I have no clue. And I sent them out, and within 2 weeks, I received about 82 or 83 RSVPs. Wow. Guys were like, I'm not going to miss this. And I said, okay, I think we're onto something here. And after the first gathering that we had, it was just beautiful. It was an incredible just place for guys to come together. I think they were waiting for, okay, what is this? Is he going to ask me to be a part of like a thing here? Or is this like what's the shtick, right? What's the catch here? But there wasn't any. The heart and the genuine desire was to just bring a sense of community around men that were typically the ones pouring out or doing and showing and giving and all of those things. And I just wanted to create a space for them where they could come and be. And the most common thing I heard that night, I think I had 8 or 9 guys told me either that night or the next day. And a few of them were crying and they said, I didn't know how much I needed this. And so I was just like, there's really something here. And so since then we've built out a frequency for the table. We do it every 4 months here locally. And then we do a monthly forum format. And then we do a couple other different things, including our summit, which is kind of our high-end event that we do as a fundraiser for the organization. But what we're seeing, though, is the fruitfulness of, cultivating the soil for years now, and just the compounding effect of what is happening in and through the faith, business, marketplace community in our region as a result of men that are connecting and being engaged in these spaces. And it's pretty profound. So.
Yeah, and it sounds really, really simple. In our city, there's this whole story, and I won't go into all of it, but basically there was like 4 men greatly used by God in our city in the 1960s, and basically they felt called to this vision to make our city more famous for God than anything else, in that time specifically steel, and they just started gathering leaders every single month, and out of that, they've been doing this now for 50 plus years. Out of that came, I think, over 80 ministries, churches. Like, it's amazing. And so when I got around that vision, I spent an hour and a half on the phone with one of the leaders of it. And I said, I feel called to do for my generation what you did for yours. Yeah. What should I do? And he said something so simple, but he just said, just start gathering people and see what the Holy Spirit does. Yeah. And I love that you stepped down and did that. But it's one thing to put out an invite and gather people, but then what do you do with a time that's so meaningful? And I'm curious, like, how do you structure those times quarterly that leave men basically saying, wow, I didn't know how much I needed this?
Well, I think one of the things that we try to do, let me just first say something real quick that you said that I think is really
Sure.
important for all of us to hear is that, you know, in a global economy that we find ourselves in where there's content and podcasts, we have access to so much information and people all across the world. And so as a result of that, we get to hear and learn from, you know, some of the most brilliant communicators and people and teachers and theologians and business minds and all of that. And it's wonderful. But I think through that, there is a lost sense of the importance of community and locality. And what I love about what you said is that there were men locally that said, you know what, we're going to do this here.
Yes.
And it's interesting because people long for that. And they're just waiting for someone to just pick that up and say, okay, I'm going to run with this. Because ultimately, like you and I, we go to great conferences. I've been to great events and all of that. But at the end, you meet great people and you have fun. But then you come home
Yep.
and you're back in the everyday. And there's something different about, you know, when you're with and spending extended time with people that have the same weather patterns. And, you know, if there's grief in the community, you all share that together, you know, or if there's a new company coming to town or one that shutters or all of that, like it's felt differently. And so there's something about the community in the sense of locality that those men saw in Pittsburgh that others have seen elsewhere. And we're seeing that here. And so I say that just to encourage because I thought a few years ago, I was like, yeah, I'm seeing all these amazing things that are happening in Atlanta and Dallas and, you know, Colorado Springs and Orange County. And then now Franklin, Nashville, Tennessee, all these kind of just micro movements of, you know, Christianity and faith. And I was like, well, you know, why not Springfield? Why not
Yeah.
Springfield being a hub of creativity around the place of male formation and community? And so I just said, that's what we're going to do. We're going to run with it. And so, anyways, I just want to speak to what you said though, because I think it's
Oh,
really, really important about the focus of local, like that. That is where transformation and change happens. It's not on this broad growth, you know, outside of our community. It's right where we are. It's extremely important.
1,000%. And again, I feel like I'm talking to myself. This is awesome to find another connector. But in our city, you know, when I was mentioning to you before we started recording, we have this, I call it a mastermind, these influential spiritual leaders in our city. And when we started gathering, they, you know, within a year, they all said the same thing the men in your group said. They said, I didn't know how much I needed this. And, you know, when you ask them what they needed, they basically just say friendship.
Yeah.
But what I think's so important, especially amongst leaders, is all of these guys, if I talked to them before, they could mention the national mentors that they have or the national communities that they're a part of. But in my opinion, and I would say that they would all say this the same thing now, that does not make up for the local,
Yeah.
hey, I get to see you in person. Like
Yeah.
that is what's truly transformational. I don't care how many Zoom calls you're on with people nationally, it cannot make up, in my opinion. Would you say the same thing
I
or
would, you know,
yeah.
I was able to listen at a gathering of some guys a year or two years back, and Pete Oakes was speaking, and he was talking about, he talks a lot about spiritual, social, and economic capital. And one of the things he was talking about is the social capital, and he was talking about like connections and friendships and your networks and stuff like that. And he said, you know, you're going to have certain circles that are local. Some of them are going to be more regional and some are going to be more broad. And so I've seen that, you know, there's benefits to all of them in different
Sure.
ways. But you know, the people that you do life with in the traditional sense are right where you are. They're, you know, again, they're in your neighborhoods, they're in your community. You see them often. And if it were me, I would invest as much time as I can with those people because those people are right where you are. And so I think there's a lot of value to that. To get back to your question about the
Yeah.
way that our gatherings go, specifically our table, I found that the table, you know, one of the things we're looking into is okay, what does growth look like? We're not trying to grow for the sake of growing, but it's just happening. And so
Hmm.
we've had guys reach out from a variety of different places that are like, hey, I hear about what's happening with Kinsman and Springfield, and we want that for here. How do we do this? And so we've tested this in a couple of different markets, and we're learning about what that looks like. But one of the things I think is really unique to what we're doing is it's not anything new. It's just we're not having guys sign up in the traditional sense. We're not trying to extract or get anything from them. We're not cheapening. We're not, you know, most guys' events, you know, it's like, okay, we meet at the conference center or the hotel lobby thing or the church community room or whatever. And it's like, okay, we have a buffet and there's sandwich, make a burger, you know, or whatever, or taco bar. And all well and good. Nothing wrong with that. But like when we get together, like at our gatherings, like we feast. Like we eat really, really, really good food. And it's not
All right.
like 14 different kinds of meat and we obsess about bacon. That's not what I'm talking about. Like I'm talking about like it's really good premium quality food. And we have really intentional details. You know, we have a decorated table. We have table assignments where guys are going to sit. We remove every obstacle and barrier for guys to think that, okay, what do they want from me? Because a lot of guys and women too, for sure. But the context of what we do for our organization, we really speak to men and in that space. A lot of guys are always performing. They're trying to show up in a certain way, whether that's in work or in their community or whatever. And that's not bad. But a lot of guys just want a space where they can show up and be seen for who they are and not what they do. And so the tables kind of become that. And then, so that's kind of like, you know, 1.0 is okay. The environment that we're setting, it actually breeds a level of expectation where guys walk in and they're like, oh, okay, no, this is different. Like I'm going to bring my best self. I am seen. I am wanted. I belong to something because I'm in this room. And guys take that seriously. And it's amazing what happens when you create an environment and you cultivate that rather than just kind of throwing it together. Be like, hey, we're going to get some guys together, just sign up. And again, that's not bad. But some of the intentionality that we put in the way in which we bring men together, I think is very, very important. Yeah.
So you feast, which is awesome. Is that it? Is that like the whole,
just eat for 4 hours.
We're just,
no, it's a combination. Yeah. We do a few different things.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
And they've kind of evolved a little bit, but it's a combination of teaching and not like a preaching, like you hear on a Sunday type thing. It's more just like it's a combination of life. It could be a little bit of leadership type stuff. It's more just, I use this word a lot, demonstration. It's just, okay. It's, testimony. When we look at scripture, we overcome how? By the blood of the Lamb and the word of our testimony. And so especially men, we really long to hear the stories of other men and their victories and their triumphs and yes, their defeats. And so we just try to create space where story is shared, whether that's the filter is through a business context or a marriage context or a faith context. I mean, faith is obviously the undertone of everything. We always read scripture at the beginning. Usually we reference or quote, Bonhoeffer or C.S. Lewis or, somebody like that. And then we feast and we break bread. And then, we always honor men in the room. We always create space to just elevate and celebrate the men in our community that are doing great things, sometimes very much unseen. And so again, we're just creating an environment that's very, very authentic. It's not rushed. It's not programmatic, but it's very intentional. And, I like to say we're meticulous about 80% of everything that happens, but we have to leave room for the Holy Spirit to move. And so we do that. And we do have some teaching, but we also, we have space too where we do some worship, but it's not a full band. We do an acoustic set. Usually we choose a classic hymn or two, and we pray. And sometimes, we'll have a panel and sometimes we don't. And sometimes we'll lean into things that are a little bit more uncomfortable or difficult to talk about. Sometimes they're easier, and it varies from time to time. But what's been really neat is guys will rearrange their schedule now to be there. They'll be like, oh, we're going to push back our vacation a couple of days. I don't want to miss table or whatever it may be. The biggest challenge we have is I have a list of 350, 375 men, and the room seats a third of that. And I'm not going to make a bigger room. I want more smaller rooms, not bigger rooms. And so that's a challenge, but we're trying to find ways to help with that, excess, but it's a good problem to have.
Yeah, we were talking earlier, as a connector, for me, like the greatest part about being a connector is what happens after you're no longer needed, right? It's like, hey, I put on the event, I got the people in the room, and then basically, as Reed Carpenter, the mentor in my life, said, just see what the Holy Spirit does. You were talking about your passion for men and people just in general to have real friendships. Yeah. And man, there's a loneliness epidemic in our world right now. What have you learned about friendship through what you're doing? Is that your ultimate hope for people to come to the table? And what does real authentic friendship look like?
At Indosha, we help transform visions into results. What does that mean? We often work with companies who are doing amazing things that have incredible products and services, but fail to communicate what they do properly and market themselves effectively. We passionately serve entrepreneurs, business leaders, and visionaries to see what's in their heart and their visions for the future come to life. We do that by providing fractional marketing leadership and creative execution all in one. That's what we call VCMO. With VCMO, you get a marketing director and a team of creative professionals to help execute all of your marketing needs, all for one monthly cost. How do we do all this? We do it 3 ways. Number 1, we get your vision. We get excited about your mission and your trajectory as a company and come alongside to see you go further, faster. 2, we have a team of talented strategists and creatives to get all of the work done. And 3, we flat out work freaking hard for you and your company. Reach out today. Let's start a conversation.
Yeah, we just revamped. That's a great question. We just revamped our formal vision statement. I made a post on LinkedIn about this because we were doing it, and someone was like, "Well, that kind of sounds like a mission statement." I'm like, "Vision, mission, purpose, positioning, whatever. It's a statement that we live by, and it's this: it's to faithfully demonstrate a redemptive, Christ-centered brotherhood and influence others to do the same." You know, when Paul talks about brotherhood in the New Testament, he uses the word philia, love, and when you think about like friendship and brotherhood, like a lot of guys don't think about love, you know what I mean? But it's this idea of attachment. It's this idea of like needing one another. And guys by default want to be independent. They, you know, whether they like it or not, or whether they'll say it or not, like, you know, we all kind of want to have this, like, I made it on my own, this self-made type of thing. And there's no such thing as a self-made man, but there's just the cultural headwinds of, you know, what it looks like for guys to have a brotherhood, to have a friendship, has been hijacked. It's been either perverted on one end, or it's been, you know, overly alpha mailed on the other end. And so guys that are like, okay, well, I don't really know where I fall in this. I don't even know what this looks like. And so we like to say a lot, we're trying to create this demonstration of what it looks like for guys to show up. So part of that is, it's praying with one another. Yes. It's honoring one another. It's wrestling through things. It's just creating space just to be and just to have friendship and connection. I said this before we started recording, but I think in a lot of ways we almost need to unlearn about what friendship looks like. I recently wrote an essay through our email. It was talking about the fallacy of transactional relationships and friendships. And especially for guys, you know, women are just so much better at this. They are so much more authentic. They're much more genuine. And there's challenges there too, of course, but women are just more instinctively and naturally better at connection and friendship than men are. And I got a lot, what I've found is that a lot of guys, they are friendship by association. And so it's like, oh, our kids coach soccer together, so we're friends. It's like, no, you're not. You guys just coach soccer together. Or even this one, this is a common one. Guys just like, oh yeah, we're good friends. No, you're not. Like, we're in a life group together. We get together, you know, for our life groups with our families and our couples once a month. And that's a good thing. You should be doing that or some form of that. But if that's all that it is, like there's so much more there. There's so much more there. If I could tell you the conversations I've had with guys in the last few weeks about suicide, about loss, about grief, about so many things that are deep, about, you know, I just, every guy longs to have connection and friendship with other guys in that way. And I think guys are recognizing and realizing that we really need that, but they don't really know how to go find it, because a lot of times where they go search to find it, it's awkward and it's weird. And in the traditional faith Christian circles, we've layered on this whole weight of accountability and righteousness. And it's like, well, those are important things, but like we lead with shame, and then guys are like, I'm out. And so guys are like, well, what I have found is, if, you know, I mean, we talk about sanctification and the process of sanctification. It's like, okay, in the process of being sanctified is we say, okay, you know what? I shouldn't be doing that thing anymore. I shouldn't be looking at that thing. I shouldn't be acting that way. And when you're around other men where you're learning to live that out, it's just going to happen. You don't have to lead with, don't do this or don't do that. It's like, that's going to happen. If you're engaged in the scriptures, if you're sharpening one another, if you're loving one another, those things will come out. And so I think sometimes we're looking for that quick knee-jerk kind of transformation in a person's life, when it's like, we're playing the long game here. Like I'm thinking 10, 20, 30, 40 years ahead in everything that we do. That's the only way we can. So
Yeah. Well, and what you just said is exactly why what you're doing is so important. Again, gathering people, because again, most people crave that, but they don't know how to get it. The language that we use around this is that everybody, and I was specifically talk to leaders, needs a group in which they're fully known, fully loved, and fully challenged. And you need all three, right? You need a place where you can talk about suicide or grief and know that it's a safe place and that you'll be fully loved unconditionally, regardless of what you're bringing up, regardless of when you mess up, etc. But at the same time, and for me, it's most important is you're going to be fully challenged. Like sometimes we do need people to get in our face and to slap us and say, "What are you thinking? Are you crazy?" And so, thank you just for providing opportunities like that. You mentioned the quarterly gatherings. I'm also curious, like your big annual gathering is coming up in September.
Yeah.
Like, what's the difference in that, and what's kind of the purpose and agenda for that whole thing?
Yeah. So our organization, we're a 501c3. And I served on a lot of boards and was involved in a variety of things before we launched Kinsman and the organization. And one of the things I always wanted to set out to do was to create a diversified revenue stream as an organization. And so events are something that we do. We, like I mentioned earlier, we have this publication. It's called Kinsman Journal, but it's essentially a really high quality premium photo book. I say it's like a picture book for adult Christian men, but it's just a beautiful, beautiful book. And so we've created some revenues with that. But then the events that we do, some of them are ticketed, some of them are invite only, and they're not. But the summit is a ticketed event, and it's a 2.5 day. It'll be this year a 2.5 day experience. It's only for 100 men, and that includes our speakers. And we have 9, including myself. And so it'll be a tremendous 2.5 days where we're going to go after matters of the head as much as matters of the heart. And I believe environment really matters. And so that's why we're hosting it at Top of the Rock in Big Cedar. And if you've ever been to the Midwest and haven't been down there, it's an extraordinary place. And, but yeah, I think it's important to break away. It's important to break away if you can annually. And so the summit will be that. It's designed for you to have connection with just about anybody there that you'd want to. So it's really not a conference, but it's also not like a retreat where it's just, 10, 15, 20 people. It's kind of that in between. So yeah, that's coming up later this fall. And just from a, number standpoint, our goal is to basically 50% of all the money that we take in from the tickets. Like we're not going to do an ask or anything that at the event. It's going to be taken care of. But our goal is to basically have a 50 to 60% net back to the organization through partnerships and then through ticket sales. And so it's a very high-end experience. We give really, really good gifts. It's going to be a beautiful couple of days. So
that's awesome. Tell me more about the journal. Like I thought it was interesting when I was researching everything you're doing. Like you started with that, and I think specifically, maybe I heard you on a podcast. You talked about this book that impacted you. I think it was called "Revenge of the Analog." Correct me if I'm wrong, but tell me about that. That fascinates me.
Yeah, some of the origin story. Part of the origin story is I was. This would have been in 2017. At the time, I was an auditor for I was doing church lending. And I was in Wichita, Kansas, finished up some sales calls that morning and picked up a book called The Revenge of Analog, Real Things and Why They Matter. And in there was 2 chapters, and all the chapters read independently. But 2 of the chapters were the revenge of print and the revenge of paper. And the Holy Spirit just used that to just awaken a sense of curiosity for me. And so for the next couple of years, I spent a lot of time just reading and learning about what was happening in media, print media, specifically in the place of like men and fatherhood. Those, I was a young dad at the time and still am, but I just was really, really curious about 5 or 6 different things and how they all kind of connected. And that book was really kind of the beginning of that. And so we emerged from that in 2019 and just decided, hey, we're going to publish a really high-end publication for men, and it's going to be centered on faith, fatherhood, and work. And it's going to be a series of essays, first person, beautiful, rich photography, and really content designed to provoke thought and dialogue between a man and his creator, between a man and his family, between a man and his friends. And so really, a lot of what we do organizationally, even to this day, has been birthed out of, the dialogue that we first had on paper. And now that we're having them in proximity and in gathering spaces. But publishing is very much a part of our organizational DNA. And we're looking at ways where we're going to continue to do that in creative ways outside of future volumes, but also in between. So, the book, I will tell you, there is and I say this just with humility, but there's nothing like it out there. Nothing. Every single guy that gets it, they're like, this is unbelievable. Like, there's a lot of really great books out there, but a lot of guys just don't read them. They'll read some of them, but not all of them. And I've ran into guys multiple different times at different things, and they're like, I still go back and I read the Words to Live By every single month. And it's as much I think it was John Tyson that said this. He goes, man, this is like a modern day artifact. And that's really what it is. It's an artifact. And so it's a beautiful book. We have it. The second print that we did, we actually created a gifting experience with it. And so when we ship it out, it's basically ready to be given as a gift, because we found a lot of people like to give it that way. So.
Wow. Really cool. You mentioned you're a father, and, and you're locking on with all these guys. So, I'm a father of 5 as well. So I just always love asking dads, especially people who are in community a lot. What are your top 5 parenting tips that you're learning about? It doesn't have to be 5, but man, what's working when it comes to fatherhood for you?
Yeah. Boy, there's the heavy ones and there's the light ones. The light ones, I would start out with this is, you got to be intentional with each of your kids differently. They have different needs. You can't parent them all the same, which is hard. You can still be fair, but you need to parent them differently. They have different needs. And no matter what their age is, they all crave and want one-on-one time. So try to find time for that. It's extremely important. I'm seeing that. It's hard to do, but it's extremely important. That's one thing. A heavy thing that I would say is, especially to men out there, you need to deal with your stuff, because if you don't deal with your stuff, it will be a perpetual thing throughout your family. So you got to deal with your stuff. And that looks differently for everybody. It could be something small. It could be something really, really big. I don't want to say I don't believe necessarily in generational curses. I don't believe in that, but I do believe there are strongholds that are carried down. But the blood washes that. We are made new. We are a new creation in Christ. And so I see a lot of men that they fall back to the false self, and they don't live from the true identity that is spoken over us in Scripture when we are a son of God. And so I think dealing with that is an extremely important thing for men. I think the other thing that I would say, a parenting tip, this is kind of a non-traditional parenting tip, something I've been mentioning a little bit. I see this in Christendom, where men, especially if they come from kind of a fractured, broken dynamic at home growing up, or with their own, father, is they overcompensate. And so now they're like, their life is centered around their children, because they want to be at everything and be the best dad. And those are good things. But you got to take care of yourself too. So you have to learn about what that looks like for yourself. You have to find spaces for where are you having fun? Where are you enjoying yourself? Not everything needs to be efficient and productive. And I think it's Jeremy Kubicek and Giant. They speak a lot about this idea of you have to know yourself to lead yourself, or lead yourself to know yourself. And I think there's a lot of truth to that. So I would say that as a parenting tip. We all know about the importance of a relationship with our spouse that is far superior. And so to make that a priority, I would definitely say that too. So
I love that. And talking about owning your stuff and actually getting healed from it and doing something. Again, going back to the whole thread of this conversation, is one of the best places to do that is in community. Yeah. And so again, whether it's what you're doing, other groups, like find that group where you're fully known, loved, and challenged. What I also admire about you is, let me just ask you this first, career-wise. Do you miss being an auditor or in corporate America at all?
Well, I would say this, like the banking, that I was in banking for, I was in insurance. I don't miss insurance auditing at all. Like, that was a job I had to get a career going. I had to get something. And I learned a lot of really important skills, and God used it. He doesn't waste anything. I don't miss banking. I don't miss the regulatory compliance and oversight and just constant, the industry has become such a, it's become very non-relational. And so it's become commoditized. And so it was difficult to be in commercial banking, which was what I was in. I did have a few really great clients, and I missed some of that, but I'm able, in the work that we're doing, I'm still very much involved in the market in that way. So, I don't miss it at all. I would say this though, every single position that I've had, every career that I've had leading it has been fruitful and necessary for where I am now today. So nothing is wasted. But I would say this is, if you are not in a good place. If you're angry all the time, if you're frustrated, if you don't have a good boss or you're not a good employee, you need to find a new career, a new job. Like you need to go elsewhere. However, if you're frustrated, but you're not always frustrated, if sometimes your boss and you get after it, but overall it's not too bad. Like there's reasons to leave and reasons to stay. And so I would say this though, I think everybody needs some type of a creative outlet outside of their profession. And it doesn't have to be, we're obsessed with this whole idea of like side hustle, side gig. It doesn't need to be any of that kind of stuff. Just do something that brings you joy and it connects you to the creator. Like do that. That'll be a valuable thing for you to do. So I would say that I would encourage people in that too.
Yeah, and we do live in a culture where everyone wants to be an entrepreneur, do their own thing, like you're saying, whether it's a side hustle or full time. But I think a lot of people do have dreams in their heart, and maybe they're in a job. And so, can you walk us through like what was the discerning process? Like, how did you talked about having a creative outlet? Is that how you started? And then one day you feel like, okay, I need to do this full time, or what was that like?
Yeah. Whew. I want to be careful how I say this because everybody's road and path is different. And so I don't want you to take exactly what I say as gospel, but I mean, for the first 7 years, everything that we did was born in the margins of life before and after the kids went to bed. I wasn't like laboring over Kinsman, at night when I should be with my kids. I was with my kids. I wasn't taking off the weekend and saying, all right, guys, I'm going to go work. And I wasn't doing that. I wasn't sacrificing the things that I needed to be involved in the holiness of being a parent and a husband and a father, at the expense of what I was trying to build and create. And so with that, I would say it's going to take time, like allow it to unfold, but lean into the curiosity that you have. And that's just simply what I did. I was faithful in the thing that God just put before us. And I was just leaning into that curiosity and continue to do that to this day. But I would say this, like there was years there where I was like, man, there's so much more. And I want something different. And I think there are some practical things that people can do to help gauge and gain a better understanding of how they're wired. I found StrengthsFinder to be very, very helpful. I know there's the Myers-Briggs and there's some of those like, personality, which is great. But StrengthsFinder I thought was really, really helpful because it kind of gives you specifics about, what are you really good at? What just comes naturally to you? And if you're not in a position, and this is something that I found, if you're not in a position where you're doing something where you're good at it and you enjoy it, then if you're just in it because you maybe get paid a lot of money and that's the only reason why you're in it, that is a very depressing way to live. And so don't let that be the reason why you're doing something. You have to enjoy what you're doing, because when you enjoy what you're doing, like you are your best self and the world needs that. And so with the place of dreams, that's a big word that we kind of layer on. And so I would just say to that, take the next step in whatever it is that you want to do. It doesn't have to be a giant leap, and you'll know when that time comes. We knew that, like we knew that with Kinsman, for 7 years, I was an unpaid volunteer. I mean, unpaid volunteer. I mean, thousands of hours, you know what I mean? Like, but I wasn't doing it because I was like, hey, I want to get paid someday. I was doing it because like, this makes me come alive and I love doing it. And I just was faithful in the next thing that the Lord put before us. For us, it was 7.5 years before I was employed through the organization. For others, it could be 7.5 months. For others, it could be never. I mean, there's no template for how that works. But I would say is that you need to create space and time for it to unfold. But I would, lean into the curiosity that you have. That's a really important thing. So,
yeah, I think one of the key things you said there, that God's ministered to me multiple times. So I feel like at every crossroads in my life where I'm like, hey, is it time to go or am I supposed to stay? I just felt like God's been faithful and just consistently whispering to me like, you'll know. Anyway, and it sounds so simple, but it's like, okay, like if I'm supposed to jump and go do something else or to go do this full time, like I'm going to know. I don't have to stress. And until that, like you said, just be faithful where you're at and with what God's put in your hand for this season. And it really is that simple, but we tend to way overcomplicate things.
Yeah. And I would say this, like, one pre-qualifier is you have to be in unity with your spouse on this. Like if you're not in unity on it, like you definitely don't need to move forward with it. You have to be in unity on that. Have to be. And then the other thing I would say with it too is like, not all things need to be like a profitable venture. Sometimes it's just fun just to do it. That's why I say, like, if you're curious about something, I think it might scratch that creative itch or that, entrepreneurial thing or whatever there might be for someone, just to do the next thing. Like, don't feel like you have to have it all figured out. Eventually you're just going to have to put yourself out there and just do it. So,
Yeah. I am curious, like when you were processing starting it, it's a nonprofit, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah.
Like, was it hard for you to discern nonprofit, for-profit, LLC? Is it like, was that a hard decision? What led you to choosing a nonprofit?
Yeah, there's a few pieces on that. I just saw long-term our ability to be generous as an organization was going to be more conducive for a nonprofit. I saw that, and yeah, it just made sense. I will say this, and this isn't the case for everything, but I didn't want to have like profitability or ROI metrics tied to what we were doing. I never felt like that was going to be the appropriate way. We talk a lot about like hospitality and lavish generosity. Like, that is the gospel defined is receiving, what we will never deserve. And I just think for us and what we were aiming to do in the hearts and lives of men and their families and the companies that they work and serve and lead. And I was just like, I don't want to have that measurement for us as an organization to say, okay, well, was this a profitable thing? I was just like, I want to remove that, because if we're going to serve and love, like, and reach people, or not even reach, that's an overused term, but just to connect, I didn't want to have it tied to a profitability metric. So, but that was just me.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Well, 14 years of my life have been in nonprofit world, and specifically most of those in fundraising. Has that been easy for you? Have you had to do a lot of fundraising? What do you think of that whole world?
Yeah, this is a fun question. Everything we did is completely non-traditional. We were throwing like our table gatherings. I'll just say this. Our table gatherings that we host, they cost usually around $15,000, $16,000, $17,000. But like, we don't charge guys.
How much of that is this lavish feast? I want to come just for the food.
The event space, it's kind of tied in. The event space that we use is such a beautiful spot. It's overlooking this river. It's just a gorgeous environment. And I'm like, we have to have it here for now. And we're spending, but it's like, okay, again, from a practical standpoint, it's not practical, but the gospel is not practical. Like, so many things in our life shouldn't be practical. And so that kind of goes back to the for-profit nonprofit, is like, we want to keep it small and give it all away. And that's not to say that we can't grow to a $20 million organization. It's just mindset of generosity. And it's hard to do that when you're a business that's operating with investors and trying to create a return. And there's a place for that. You absolutely have to have that. And so that's necessary, but for the purposes of what we do, it just didn't feel like the right thing. So with fundraising, like, miraculously by the hand of God, things have just happened. And we didn't even do a fundraiser until a formal one, until we did this initiative that we launched back in November, December, called the Patrons Initiative. And it was just kind of a very intentional way of telling our story as an organization and what's happened and where we see ourselves going, and inviting about 100 families and people and companies into that process. So it wasn't a traditional gala where you buy a ticket and all of that. And we might do something to some extent of that in the future, but we've just kind of taken a non-traditional approach to a lot of things that we've done. And that's not to say that everybody should do that. It's just, I always see, even though we're not in competition with anybody or anything else, I'm always very keenly aware of like what's happening in culture, what's happening in our community. What are people saying? I'm always taking inventory of that, and it affects the way that I make decisions in a good way, because I'm just aware of what's happening. And so with the fundraising dynamic, I'm just thinking like, okay, how do people want to be approached about the way that they are investing their dollars? Because that's a very sacred thing. It's very, very hard to make a profit in business and then have money left over that you'd want to give. And so it's just,
right.
I think I see this a lot with nonprofits, is they're just doing the same thing they've always done. And it's just slowly, year by year by year, there's just this attrition. And it's like, we have to have more creativity about the ways that we're engaging in the work that we're doing organizationally. One of the things we've been very, very careful about is not hiring a lot of staff where we have a lot of high overhead. I work very, very hard. My wife and I work very, very hard, but yeah, we probably do the work of like 3 or 4 people, but it allows us to be very generous as an organization. And I don't know. I just think that there's a model out there. I feel like, especially in the nonprofit, it's like, okay, we do this type of fundraiser, we do this thing. This is how we engage with our donors, this, and that. And I would just say, throw all that out and literally just get on your hands and knees and receive from God, from the Holy Spirit, to say, okay, what is the proper path for our organization? How are we to lead this? What is this supposed to look like for us? Because if it looks like everybody else, then it's all going to be who has the biggest budget. You have to be in tune with like, what is the story that is being told in and through you and the organization and what you're trying to accomplish. It needs to be very, very passionate when you speak about it and talk about it, because it's very difficult to raise funds. It's very difficult.
Yep. You got that right. I have a few lightning round questions to wrap up with, but before I do, anything else on your heart that you would love to share with leaders today?
Oh boy, I think I covered a lot of that. I would say this, depending on when you listen to this, there's a seasonality to our life, and we are not created and wired to go at a very high intense pace year round. We need to create space and time to slow down and to stop. Sometimes full stop, other times just to slow down. We had our forum meet last month, and we don't meet during the summer months, June, July, and August. And it's a group of about 40, 45 business guys and leaders in the community. And I was just like, hey, I want you guys to have a vision for how you're going to have fun with your family and your kids this summer. And I said, it doesn't mean you have to take an extra vacation. You don't need to go spend thousands of dollars. That's not what I mean. But just, you need to have a vision for how we're going to engage and be intentional with our kids. And so I gave this example. I was like, hey, you know what? For 2-3 months, you could probably take off Tuesdays. You could probably go in the office an hour and a half later, rotate taking your kids to breakfast. Just simple things that we can do to just kind of slow down a little bit. And so that's the thing that I would say, leaders, especially those that are, very type A and driven, you're just going, and you're plowing through and you're creating and you're achieving and you're producing. And those are good things. God's wired you that way, but you have to slow down. You have to stop. You have to create space and margin to exhale sometimes. And so that's something that I see a lot of people doing, myself included. And so I'm speaking to myself. And so that's what I would say.
And you're speaking to me too. Yeah, I think anyone who's driven, has a hard time slowing down. All right, a few fun lightning round questions. What's the best advice you've ever received and who gave it to you?
Best advice I've ever, well, I would say probably more recently, something that has become almost like a personal mantra is God is far more interested in who I'm becoming in him than what I'm doing in his name. And so that is a frequently revisited thought. Because there's so much truth to it, especially as an achiever.
I hear. It may be the same answer, but if you could put a quote on a billboard for everyone to read, what would it say?
I'd probably say that. Yeah, I would. I would say that. Yeah, I would say that.
All right.
Who are you becoming? What's shaping you? I would ask a question. There's so many good quotes out there. I would just ask questions. Questions open up a lot of dialogue. I would say, who are you becoming? Who do you need to forgive? Who's forgiven you? Just stuff that just opens up deep, deep stuff. I would ask those questions.
So good. Do you have any, are those your go-to usually for questions, or do you have any others?
Yeah, I usually, I'm a pretty highly relational guy. So when I have a conversation with someone, I try to be very engaged in what they're mentioning and talking and saying often, and then I kind of tie it back in. I always ask about their family and their life. That usually opens up a lot of dialogue. So people like to give you the highlights and the resume. I'm not interested in that. I'm not interested in things that I can find online. I'm interested in stuff that only happens between you and me right here, right now. That's what I want.
Love it. What's your biggest leadership pet peeve?
Oh boy. I kind of don't want to say it, but I mean this kindly. We overuse the word leadership. We need to use the word followership. Everybody's trying to be something and build flat platforms. And I don't know, I see the humility in Christ, and I think we could all use a big dose of that right now in the way that we love and serve. And I think in our humility, in our following of Jesus, I think that people are going to be drawn into that and say, okay, what's different? And then what we're doing is we're pointing people back to him in the way that he modeled life, And so that's what I would say. I think everybody's trying to, and this is what I would say too with this is Everybody's trying to be the person to the left and to the right. Just be who you are. You don't have to, like, if you're a pastor, you don't have to have multi-site. Like, you don't have to grow. Like, you just like that. Like, if you're a business leader, like, you don't have to write a book. You don't have to have a podcast. Like, you don't have to do, like, just be who you are. Like, be your true, authentic self. And that's what I would say. That's what the world needs. The world doesn't need a bunch of imposters. The world needs people to be their true, authentic self, rooted in their identity in Christ as sons and daughters. That's what we need. That's my leadership.
So good. I love it. I'm going to go change the name of my podcast.
No, leadership's a great word.
No, I'm messing with you, man.
L3 followership. There you go.
Hey, I'll give you full credit. But no, that is such a good word. Thank you for sharing that.
Do you know what I mean, though? Like, I mean 100%. That. Like,
be you.
Yeah, you gotta be your authentic self. Now, being authentic self too isn't like, well, you do you, and I'm just gonna be me, and I'm just no. That's not what I mean either. Like, it's from a place of humility and surrender and imperfection, not false humility, but it's like, hey, you know what? Like, here's some things I've learned, and I have a long way to go, but it's a posture of humility. I think it's important.
Which is, again, not to beat a dead horse, but it's like, that's why you need to be in a community. If you and I are in a community and you see that in me, you can call it fully challenged, right? It's like, hey, I don't know that you're being true to what God's called you to do, and man, I think that's so good. So thank you for sharing. You know, you're all about experiences, which I am too. I'm just curious, is there a bucket list experience that you've had that you think everyone should experience before they die? And if so, what is it?
Well, I'll say one that I want to do. I want to take my wife to Italy. That is definitely something.
Let's go.
Like, we'd love to go to Italy. I tell you what, the Italians, they got it right with their food. I could eat pasta and just, I could live on a vineyard, and I mean, that's something that is a bucket list trip to Europe. We're big baseball fans. We love baseball. And so I want to take my kids to all the different stadiums. That's a big dream of mine.
Have you been to PNC Park in Pittsburgh?
I haven't, but if you want to hook me up, I'd love to. It's like top 3. It's a beautiful, beautiful stadium.
Yeah, come visit, man. We'll host you, and we'd love to have you.
I'd love to come.
Let's make that happen.
Yeah.
This would be a wild shot. Have you ever heard of a pastor named Matt Keller?
Oh, yeah.
Well, is it Fort Myers, Florida?
Yeah, there's one in Florida. Next, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Actually, when I did church lending, I did a considerable amount of work with the ARC, Association of Related Churches.
So yeah, you definitely know him.
Yep.
So yeah, Matt's a great friend and mentor, and he's probably the biggest baseball fan. And so he comes up. He initially had the same bucket list to hit every ballpark, and now he just hit me again. He's like, now I want to see the Rays play specifically in every ballpark. So he's going to come up and see the Rays play. But yeah, seriously,
fun.
Open invite to you and your family. Would love to. And I have friends that have tickets that are right behind home plate. Like, yeah, we'll hook you up.
Fantastic.
In Italy, do it. My wife and I had the honor of going a few years ago, the Amalfi Coast. I haven't been to the other places, but you must go there.
Yeah,
and anyway, last 2 questions. If you could go back and have coffee with yourself at any age, and you would have actually listened to yourself, what age would that be, and what would you tell that version of Peter?
Ooh. Well, this is what I would say. I'd probably go back to my preteen self, in the midst of just a lot of really difficult times in my life as a child. And I would say, hey, kiddo, it's going to be okay.
Yeah. Wow.
I was really angry for a few years and before I found the Lord. And I'd probably go back to him and say, it's going to be okay. God's got you in all this. That's what I would say.
Wow. Thanks for sharing. Yeah. And I always love just asking leaders or whoever I interview, you know, at the end of your life, what do you want your legacy to be?
Well done, good and faithful servant. That's it.
Right on.
Well, I can't remember who said it. Preach the word, die and be forgotten. I mean, I can't remember. I mean, I'm not a preacher, but like, I tell you what, success to me is really simple. It's that I love and I'm loved by my family first and foremost, and like that. I mean, nothing else really matters to me. I mean, a lot of things matter to me, but like, if I fail at that. I failed at everything. But if my kids, you know, want to be around me in 30, 40 years when I'm old, I mean, that's a beautiful life well lived, and I'll take that all day over any other achievement and accomplishment. So
me too, brother. Me too. Well, Peter, thank you so much for your time. This hour flew by, and thank you just for gathering and connecting people. It matters so much, and I look forward to building our friendship together.
Oh, you bet. And I'd love to connect to anybody. I'm on LinkedIn a lot. Like that's my favorite place to be, social wise. And so I'd love to connect with you on there and get to know each other. So
fantastic. We'll include links to everything that we talked about and encourage you to check out all of the things we talked about as well. So thanks again, and have a good one. Until next episode, everyone. See ya.
See ya. Thanks, bud.
Well, hey, leader, thank you so much for listening to my conversation with Peter. I hope that you enjoyed it as much as I did. You can find ways to connect with him and links to everything that we discussed in the show notes below. I also want to give a special thanks to our sponsor, Endosha Marketing Solutions. They are the producers of this podcast. And if your organization has any marketing needs at all, I wholeheartedly recommend their services. Check them out at endosha.com. That's ANDOCIA.com. And as always, I like to end every episode with a quote. And today I'll quote C.S. Lewis, who said this. He said, "You are never too old to set another goal or to dream a new dream." And I think Peter's story is a shining example of that. So I hope you enjoyed the episode. That's going to wrap up things for today. Remember, leader, don't quit. Keep leading. The world desperately needs your leadership. We'll talk to you next episode.